guys, we're back here for our final segment. We want to touch on what's been happening in current financial times. I think that it's been a little bit crazy out there. The S&P and the market closed down over 4% today, which was probably the largest intraday loss we've seen this year so far, at least up there. And
sad that I don't think it is not the only day that we have dropped by over 1,000 points.
Yeah, this is, I think we've had 2 or 3 days like this throughout the year, which is brutal.
Nuts.
So this is the year of volatility, and many people have asked the question, are we in a recession? And that's a much longer-winded response, but I would definitely tell you that we are. There's really no way to say other than yes. You know, it's the Biden administration can say as much as they want to that we're not in one.
It's crap.
But politically motivated topics like that just make no sense, because if you compare the chart of 2008 to 2009 to where we are now, it is almost perfectly followed that chart. So we had this pretty significant decline, had a nice little rally over the summer. And then if you look at where we are now, we're starting the downward trend again. But that downward trend goes so much lower, just like 2009, than it did, you know, in every other year. So I think that it's advisable that you should talk to your financial advisor about what your cash position is, what your strategy is to mitigate volatility, and to represent a good hedge to the downside. Because if they don't have a good response to that question, here at Paragon Private Wealth Group, we certainly do. You know, we've taken all of our clients down to between 20 to 40% equities at the greatest allocation. We've added to cash, and this is obviously no means to giving you advice for your situation, but what my personal opinion is, and as a professional opinion, is that we have some darker times ahead of us with a lot of global headwinds.
You know, there's a lot of uncertainty too with, you know, what's going on with Russia and the Ukraine, and the impact of the war, and what's going on with China, and, you know, all of these different things. So I think the simple thing to say is best not to panic, but make sure that you have a plan. And so if you are not qualified to do that for yourself, which most people are not, you know, reach out to someone like Andrew here who can assist you in that situation. Certainly. But the other thing is, you know, don't buy into all the political bullshit from either side either, where everything is politicized, including like the Uvalde shootings of late. Can we please just, God almighty, I'm so freaking tired of the people on both sides of this thing. We need a third party like nobody's business.
Oh,
Jesus.
yes, the old third party system. I just think that we're due for a political reset, and the tides are definitely are coming in for that. So we'll see what happens on that front. But just to echo Mark's sentiment, you know, there's a lot of geopolitical headwinds. There's the inflation conversation remains top of mind, and just be cognizant and be diligent about trying to get them and consume the most non-biased information possible, which can be hard to do in today's day and age. So I think we want to finish our sequence here talking about a few different myths that professions can have, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And it's kind of funny to think about that in the context of what you might do for a living. Like, for example, I was reading a few of these here. You know, a radiologist working with x-rays does not necessarily make me radioactive, so don't worry about that. Or a hacker, no, you can't just hack everything by frantically typing bullshit into a console.
Right.
So, Mark, I'd like to start with you. What are some of the myths about your business? I mean,
well, I'll tell you what, I want to back up for just a second, because
sure.
One that I find interesting is what it was said about journalists. So this is, you know, talking about misconceptions around work, right? And so I wonder if anybody other than a journalist actually sees this way. So here's what the quote was. Something being, quote, off the record, if you're speaking to a journalist, you can't just say, quote, off the record, unquote, and then spill your guts. You need to have agreed with the journalist beforehand that you will not be quoted. That's my opinion too. If I'm granting you an interview and you're looking for more depth, and I say, okay, well, this is off the record, and they just they sit there and are applying you for additional information on it, that's the way it should be. That's my opinion. Otherwise, it just seems like a whole different level of dishonesty, which I think is, frankly, kind of what media is viewed as today anyway, as being inherently dishonest. So I don't think this little idea is very good. So I just wanted to make that little comment because I found that really interesting.
I think
it just
Edward
didn't sit
Morrow
well.
would agree with you.
Yeah, I think so too. So, or Walter Cronkite,
Speaking
who
of old
also
guys.
was a University of Texas grad. So
Very nice.
that's right.
Yeah, Texas almost won against Alabama. Too.
Should have won. That was stolen. They still had opportunities to win, even though the refs sucked.
Yeah.
And didn't close. But hey, if somebody would have told me we were going to lose by a point to Bama
You would have been
going
pretty
in, I'd have
excited
been
about
like, okay, well, I'm okay with that.
Exactly.
Didn't tell me we were losing our top 2 quarterbacks and a bunch of other shit going on at the same time. But
Sure.
Okay, so myths in your field. Okay, as a family law attorney. So if one
can think of a
harbors
few.
back to the days of L.A. Law and Corbin Burnson playing the divorce lawyer on L.A. Law, there is a common idea that, divorce lawyers are doing their clients. I can say that's an ethical violation, folks. I'm not telling you that some people don't do that because I know of some that do, but it doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen at our firm. That's for damn sure. Another thing, let's see, is it a myth? It is amazing to me the number of people that will walk in and say, well, I know that Texas is a community property state, so I know the law is X. And it's like, yeah, that's not the law. We are a community property state, but most people don't really understand what the true ramifications of that are and what separate property is really defined as and how all of that works and how all of that is intertwined. So I saw a doctor who actually had a coffee mug that said, don't confuse my medical license with Google. Sure. And that's the same thing I think in a number of different fields, because just because you find it on the internet does not mean that shit is true. And a lot of the time it is not, because I can tell you the law in New York is not the law in Texas.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. So
if that were the case, then Tom Cruise wouldn't be paying $400,000 a year from child
no
support.
shit. You would not have that in Texas.
Not at all. And so I guess being what Mira has noted here as an old guy,
Yeah.
and your ability to reference 1980s legal dramas that are probably not even available on streaming services anymore, for all those who are wondering.
Y'all would be better off if they were.
I'm sure
that
it
was
would be.
true drama right there.
I feel like
my
you're
friend.
a good representation of like Denny Crane on Boston Legally. This is definitely.
I am much better looking than Denny Crane and in better shape than Denny Crane.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So-
that's great. Well, on the financial advisor side, wow. I love being called a stockbroker, and by I love that, I don't love it at all. It's really funny because we don't really broker the sale of individual stocks anymore. I don't sell you the stock of the day. There is no stock of the day, and we don't get paid anymore on the stock of the day. So I think there's been a lot of change over the course of our professional degree, particularly when I entered the business, on the moral efficacy of this industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think back in the roaring 90s, it was of this in the 80s where the Jordan Belforts of the world were prolific. It would have been a lot more
That's
fun.
Wolf of Wall Street, folks.
Yes, it would have been a lot more fun for me to be a financial advisor back then. But I think there's a big moral compass that encapsulates this profession, because people entrust you with their money. And if you are party to giving bad advice, you are party to disrupting their retirement and their livelihood, which is a larger burden to carry. Not to say that my job is so morally overwhelming that we can't handle it.
Right.
But other than that, we don't have a crystal ball. I think that's really important to let people know that we are doing our best to manage for the future, but there's no way to tell how to time the market. So
Right.
it's always best to have a good long-term strategy and employ that long-term strategy in ways that you can be comfortable with a longer, time horizon that encapsulates less risk. So
I'll tell you one other that I wanted to address is, so what are the misconceptions about a husband?
Okay.
So here's the one thing that absolutely fucking infuriates me is seeing all of these ads where the husband or father is portrayed as a bumbling fucking idiot that can only take care of the kids or do assignments that are assigned by his wife, who is at least 3 levels above him in so many different areas, clearly married above his head in looks and brains and all of these other issues. But I get so tired of that kind of thing. It's like, why is every husband or father portrayed as some sort of a complete fucking idiot in that? I don't get it.
Because when dads say, I have to go and babysit my kids, what does that mean?
Well, okay, so we're talking about a specific human being in that regard, to which the entire office, gives that person shit, whether they are male or female. I have never viewed anything like that. As we know, I have a 24-year-old daughter who just took the bar that is getting ready to join my practice. And, I've had a phenomenal relationship with her for a long time. And her mother and I got divorced when she was 5. And so, she spent more time with mom, but she spent a shit ton of time with dad. And,
Sure.
I didn't. We had some differing viewpoints on how to do different things. But I sure as hell didn't need to be taking direction to be able to figure out, how to toast bread.
That's what a toaster's for, so that's good.
I get it. I can operate one still to this day.
I think this kind of boils down to, and Mira, definitely jump in here if you disagree with me. I think this is the modern war on masculinity. There's a lot that's happening here where, a lot of white men have had the domination of communication through historical lens in modern world, but now that the playing field has been leveled and there's been a large, movement toward what I would call the toxic feminist movement. A lot of women are rebelling against this strong feminist movement because there are some societal gender roles that we play and that many men and women like to conform to because it's it helps accentuate our strengths and then help our partner develop their own strengths through what we are good at. So I think that it's really interesting to talk about that idea.
I want you to open my door.
Right.
I also want to say, I want you to tell me, God bless you if I sneeze. I want you to take care of me if I need to be taken care of.
Sure.
I still want to be, for lack of better words, a chick.
Yeah.
So I'm totally on board with that. I didn't even know that I was a triple minority, so I just got to tell you, woman of color, female, and I have psychological
Well, so woman of
issues,
color and female would.
Well, yeah. Well, okay, so I'm not that smart, but I'm just saying, woman of color, gender,
Right.
and I have, my psychological things.
I know a lot of people think that, so it's interesting because what you just said, I think, is absolutely correct. Now,
Yeah.
It is not popular, I think, to acknowledge that there are biological differences
But there
between
are.
men and women, but they're
It's a
absolutely.
statement of fact.
I agree.
Yeah.
I still think it is unpopular these days with a lot of people raising a child, and they're going to refer to it as it, they, that kind of bullshit until a child's of 2 or 3 years old to try to determine gender. Totally ridiculous. And the reason I say ridiculous, okay, look, everybody's entitled to do what they want in that regard. If you want to fuck up your kid, go to it. Have a great time. But with all the mental health experts that I deal with, what we're going to see, in my opinion, is a lot of backlash from that. Because now, my daughter's 24, okay? I represent a lot of people with kids, and you have discussions with these people about what's going on and what are you hearing from schools, what are the societal pressures, and it's almost because all this stuff is out there. It's not considered normal, so to speak.
Abnormal.
To be, I hate the term normal because I don't think that's right. I don't think, some people choose to be gay or bi or whatever, but my personal belief is I think for most people it's not a choice. It's biologic. It's the way you were built, the way you were born.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that. I don't think you necessarily choose to be gay. I think that's something that you are implicitly born with. But the thing that makes me really worried about what people who are getting too bought into this ideology is that children don't have the concept or the intelligence or the know-how, the development to understand gender at the age that they are encouraging them to make life-changing hormonal changes to their body. That is criminal, in my opinion. You can't let a child develop naturally, and the law should be protect those children who can't be protected. And I disagree with your comment you say, and like, let you fuck up your kids. I hate that idea.
So what
Because,
are you going to do? Put the government in?
I mean,
in it?
there's role for government in certain places. I mean, you can't allow doctors and medical professionals to be able to administer the treatments for that until they reach a certain age of consent. If you still believe that strongly when you're 18 years old that you can do that, then and you want to shoot guns and join the military and have a gender reassignment surgery all at the same time, you can do it.
So but my point is with that, I don't
agree with that
Yeah.
at all, because being a mom, like, I know my kid's speed. My kid's actually taught me his own speed, right? We've had these talks about gender identification in his school or classmates,
Right.
or we've had the sex talk, which he's going to be totally embarrassed because he's only 9 years old that we talked about this, and I'm talking about it. But he very clearly tells me, Mom, I like girls. I don't have a crush on anyone because I don't love anyone yet, which is so sweet. But
Very sweet.
there are boys that like boys in my class, and there are girls that like girls in my class, and that's okay.
Well, good.
And I would tend to agree with that. The difference being where you start talking about, and this is where there's a dangerous line, okay? I think
Sexual
getting
identity.
the government involved in any form or fashion is unbelievable scary to me because it reeks of attempting to codify morality or legislate morality. And you can't do that, okay? Because, and it's such an interesting standpoint from being a lawyer, right? Okay, so what is the Bill of Rights? Who is the Bill of Rights to protect? Is it to protect the individual or is it to protect society? It's to protect the individual, okay? It's not to protect society. Yet where you start getting the pushback on all this shit is where you get a group that is asking for the government to legislate things a specific way. So if you legislate whether or not a doctor can administer, these gender changing hormones or, stopping things in a prepubescent manner, the next step is what can parents discuss with their kids? So let's say that you can, a parent can still have a conversation with with a child about gender issues and all of that. But that is the natural extension. If you're going to say that you can't administer, then you shouldn't be able to have those same conversations earlier. That's what scares me. I'm not a fan of, administering medication to stop puberty and stuff like
Don't
that.
get me wrong. I'm not either. I don't think that if I was put in that situation, it would be very, very.
It'd be a terribly difficult decision to make.
Don't even know how you could F up your kid worse, right? It's one or the other. But I don't think that the government should be able to tell me, A, what I should do with my body, but B, to tell me what I need to do with my kid. That should be my decision.
No,
I agree.
I'm the parent.
Separation of church and state is huge too. Like, I mean, it goes into the broader conversation around other rights that are afforded to us. But if we have a social contract with the government, then it should say that we should have as many rights as humanly possible, right? So I think that the government can't tell us how to raise our kids, but they should stop by enforcing actions that can harm the individual. Hence why illicit substances are banned, right?
But you can. If he and I had a child and we didn't agree on something, I could take him to court and we could
Have a judge make that decision.
put an injunction in place to where he can't do it.
But that's
vice
a mediation
versa.
role versus a dictation role. Like, I think that's
No, it's closer to a dictation role because there are remedies if you violate an order, including throwing your ass in jail.
interesting. Well,
Okay, so
I just what I'm getting to is I think that although not the most thought out direction, the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is just not allowing someone, basically protecting a child who is unable to make their own decisions from decisions of someone who is influencing them.
And I agree with that. I really do agree with that. And that's where it gets very difficult. But here's where my default is. I try to imagine my own daughter coming to me and telling me that, Dad, I am miserable. I want to kill myself because I feel like I am a man in a woman's body. And this plumbing and reproductive system that I have makes me think that I'm horrible and ugly and all these things. Now, I've never had to deal with that. I start getting choked up and I get chills thinking about that because any parent unless you are a complete fucking psychopath or sociopath, doesn't want to see their child
Miserable.
hurt.
Yeah, of course not.
So if you have your child that's coming to you like that, what do you do?
Yep.
And I don't have the answer.
There's no good answer. I mean, we're talking about a topic that's like impossible. I think that it's just one of those things where I never thought about it from that perspective, but gosh, that would be horrible to think about.
And so that's my whole reason of saying hands off. It's just like, after being a parent, it's very difficult thinking about the idea of, if my wife got pregnant, of having an abortion. Okay. Horrible thought, because I've had a child. It was an academic discussion before I ever had a child.
Sure.
Okay. Now, do I think that the government should be saying that you can't get an abortion? Absolutely not. I don't think
agree with
that.
you.
Okay. Because I don't think you can legislate that person's morality on an individual level. And I don't mean morality in a good, bad sense, but what your personal belief system is.
Sure.
And that's a hard thing. So I think people lose track of those kinds of things, because it's too much stuff we create, this legislation or different stuff around. Well, in a perfect world, it's like, but in a perfect world, man, it's not a perfect world. So what do we do to try to create the less suffering? And I don't know what the answer is to that.
Well,
But it makes for a great future podcast.
It sure does, yeah. So I think we've uncovered some interesting topics to see, today, and I appreciate your time as always. Thank you, Mira, for helping us create some
Yes.
amazing content, and we'll see you next time.
All right, guys, have a good one. Bye-bye.